Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to chat through a list of some fantasy books that are adult fantasy and also have actual adult characters. In order for books to qualify for this list, the adult characters can't just exist within the book, they have to actually have their own perspectives. I did do a part 1 to this quite a while ago, so if you're interested in more books within this category, I'll have that video linked. But jumping into it for today, the first one I'm going to start with would be The Wolf of Oren Yaru. This main character is a young woman, and she is somebody who has a very tenuous hold on her throne. There are a lot of people that are her advisors, there are people that work with her, but they also are just waiting for her to fail, and when she does, they're ready to pounce. And at one point, she has an opportunity to reunite with a man that she was married to and is the father of her child, but she doesn't know what happened to him, why he left, and why he's been gone for so long. When there's this opportunity for her to reunite with him, she knows it could be a trap. She knows it might not really be him, but there's also a chance that it is him and that something has happened that has kept him apart from her, and now is the time that she can reunite with him. And not only that, but unite her country within their marriage once again. So she goes on basically this quest to reunite with him, knowing that she could be walking into a trap, and from there, the story happens. And I can't really say too much because so much of the story is about our main character really, I always describe it as clawing her way through the story. She has to overcome so many obstacles, but the part of it that makes it significant that she is an adult is that she has a son. So there are certain situations that she probably could get out of very easily if she had no one relying on her, or if she didn't have to worry about there being a threat against her son's life. But as a mother, she has to take her son into consideration. It's part of the reason she even goes on this quest in the first place, because it is her child's father. She wants the child to have his father with him. So a lot of her decision making comes down to what would happen to my son. And I just think that's quite rare to see in a fantasy story. Usually if somebody had a child, the child ends up, something happens to them, and then that's what gets the story going, or that's their sad backstory. But it's rare for you to actually see a parent do whatever it takes for their child. After that, we have Mistborn Era 2, specifically the character of Wax, because Wayne, while an adult, behaves like a child. So I'm more specifically talking about Wax and Steris. Steris ends up becoming a fan favorite for a lot of people who pick up Era 2, and I understand completely why. You don't see her very much in the beginning of the series, but as the series progresses, you see a lot more of her, and you kind of can't help but love her. You see the way in which first impressions are often very wrong, and you feel that within how she's told through the story. So a lot of people really like Steris. She's somebody who has a lot of pressure put on her by her family and her status and maintaining that, and a lot of the times that comes with marrying, and because she is a young woman who has to carry on the line in her family and such things, you see that pretty often in fantasy stories, but you never see it really with the same approach that Steris approaches everything with. She's very regimented, she makes a lot of lists, and she has to be as prepared as possible for the fact that she's probably not going to be prepared for whatever's happening. And there's just a certain quirkiness to her that I feel like a lot of us really relate to, a lot of us really love, and we like to see in our story. But then there's Wax, and Wax is kind of that, I'm going through a little bit of a midlife crisis kind of a character, and he's lived a difficult life. He used to be married, and you find out through the story what happened to the woman that he was in love with, and that's something that you're not really going to find if the main character is a child and it's a coming of age tale, or if the main character is 17 or something like that. You usually don't see somebody who is trying to pick up the pieces after something really awful has happened to someone they really loved. And then on top of that, he's also feeling this pressure that he, for a long time, he just wanted his freedom. He wanted to go out into the roughs and make a difference in their world, but then he now is recognizing how much responsibility is actually on his shoulders, and how sometimes the thing that you think somewhat foolishly is the powerful thing to do, sometimes the most powerful thing to do are the little things, the day-to-day things, the way in which you manage over a lot of the people who work beneath you. And so he's realizing that as the head of his household, the head of this particular family and also just in general, almost like a guild. He's responsible for so many people, and how well he manages that is going to affect not only the lives of the people who work for him, but then their entire city. And then from there, if their city's doing well and trade's doing well, it affects other places too. So there's just so much that he is dealing with. And it does, I think, shine a light a little bit on when you're young, you have this idea of what your life is going to be and what you're going to do to make a difference in the world. And then as you get older, those lofty goals kind of shift and life changes a little bit. And I really liked examining that with these characters. After that, we have the Queens of Renthia series, specifically the second book in this series. So a lot of times when I bring the series up, I talk about, one, the fact that it's pretty underhyped, and it seems like not that many people have read it. But then on top of that, what's really interesting is the setting. You have this incredible forest setting, and within this forest, you have these spirits, essentially, that they have this instinct to protect the forest, and human beings naturally, by living within the forest and having to sometimes cut down trees or do things to the forest in order to create their own homes, they inevitably harm the forest, and then there are these spirits that try to harm them. There is one woman within society that is powerful enough with her magic that she can hold the spirits in check, and then that helps maintain everything. And this woman will not live forever, so it's important to always know who's going to take her place after she passes away. So that's the setup for the story. And in the first book, you get what you would probably expect. You have a character that's kind of young who is going to the school to try and become better with her own magic in the event that one of her classmates or her is chosen next to be this queen. And in the second book, while that character was in the first book and was the main focus, you actually kind of shift your focus in the second book to a random lady. And you're kind of like, what are we doing with this person over here? And this woman is a mother. She's just doing her best to make sure her children have the best life possible. But similar to what I was saying about the Wolf of Oren Yaru, the lengths to which this woman will go to protect her children, I loved seeing. But beyond that, there's also an added factor of the fact that her husband isn't great. He really isn't great. And you rarely see a person who is having to deal with kind of a dad who isn't just, he's not a good dad and he's not a good husband. He's just not all that great at supporting his family. He's a doofus. He's kind of the worst, and not because he's malicious and horrible and a terrible evil man, but he's just regularly sucky. You know what I mean? You don't really see a regularly sucky spouse in books very often, but when you have one of those in a fantasy land where there's danger and you have to have somebody want to protect your family as strongly as you, this person can sometimes get in the way. He's foolish, he's stupid, and so this woman, at some point, she is trying her best to protect her children, and that might mean not necessarily being super devoted to this man anymore. And there's all these hard decisions that come with that. And so that's just not something you see very often in fantasy. So I actually really, really loved following this character. There's a really unique setting, but this particular perspective I also thought was a really unique one for fantasy in general. After that, we have Vicious and its sequel, Vengeful by V. Schwab. This is a story that follows individuals who have essentially powers, and how you acquire those powers is something that in the first book you are discovering alongside your two main characters. One of them is named Victor and one of them is named Eli. And these two young men were the best of friends when they were young, and then something happened and now they absolutely hate each other and they want to kill each other. And you don't really know what has happened, but there's a fractured timeline where you're getting the past, the present, but it's broken up where it's not just this timeline in the past and this timeline in the present. It's 10 years ago, 10 minutes ago, 3 years ago, 2 months ago, now. And you go back and forth between all these different things. Those maybe aren't exact numbers, but that's the idea. And you're piecing together what has happened between them. The reason that them being adults is, in my mind, kind of significant to the story and necessary is that level of hatred and that level of almost devotion to destroying another person kind of comes with, you really ruined my entire life. and I don't care about the rest of my life anymore. All I care about is destroying you. And there's just like, there's a certain bitterness that I think that age played a role in for both of these characters. I think if they were younger, you know, you grow up and maybe you hate this person, you want revenge. That's what you usually see when the characters are young. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just, I want revenge. It's that I want to dedicate my life to this. This is like their life's goal at this point. And I thought it was interesting. I actually really, really like Vicious and Vengeful quite a bit. I like that it's a modern setting. I like how incredibly morally gray these characters are and how they just throw morality out the window. So I think it's a lot of fun. Plus, like I said, that fractured timeline is quite cool. Last for today, we have The Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. One of the factors that I really, really liked about this series is the way that once life has hardened you, it's very difficult to then give in. It's very difficult to allow yourself to feel anything. And you see that a lot with Geralt. He's not necessarily somebody who is wishing harm on anybody, but he has no plans to be a hero. He's just doing his job. He's apathetic. He doesn't have a lot of care other than just to follow his profession. And seeing this character, this is why I love Geralt and Ciri's relationship, seeing this character want to live for something more. There's something about that that's more meaningful when you see somebody who is older because they have experienced over and over and over again people hating them, people having discriminatory tendencies toward them, people mistreating them, people thinking that they're terrible simply because of what he is. And when you have a character that's endured that for so long, it's so much harder, I think, to be cheesy about this, but to open your heart up to something better. You don't just see that with Geralt. You also see that with the character Yennefer. Yennefer and her backstory, the way it's done in the books, if you've watched the Netflix show, just whatever. But the way that Yennefer is done in the books is I think you really only get glimpses and you get pieces. But if you pay attention to those, you understand why she's so cold, but how deeply she actually loves the people that she has in her life that she truly, truly cares about. And that too is something that I think is really interesting because I think that for a lot of people, there is this desire to have so many friends and to do so many things and meet so many people and to think of yourself as wanting attention and in this case, wanting power, wanting status. And Yennefer, when she was young, you see that desire to have power, and discovering why is something that I think, I definitely don't want to spoil that here, but discovering why she wants that security for herself, I think is almost heartbreaking to read. But an extension of that is then when she recognizes what matters to her now. And what matters to her now is not necessarily, sorry, my dog is grunting. It's not necessarily power anymore. It's not necessarily anything for her. And I am having a hard time concentrating with how much Luna is grumbling. But regardless, Yennefer and Geralt, not only their transformations throughout the story with these other factors that I've been talking about, but also their relationship with each other and how that fluctuates and changes over time. I mean, you're essentially looking at people that were on again, off again. They were together for a really long time and they broke up and now they really don't get along. But then here they are again. And you don't really see that with younger characters. So it's just a different element than what you would typically find, like I said previously about some of the other ones with a coming of age tale or something of that sort. And plus, you can't really have that parent-esque type of character or perspective if the character themselves is extremely young. And that is one of my favorite things about the Witcher series, is the sense of found family that the characters have. But anyway, that's it for today for some adult fantasy books that actually have adult characters. If you like this style of video, I would be happy to do it again. And then, like I said before, I will have part 1 linked in the description bar. But anyway, feel free to leave your recommendations in the comments. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.